Welcome to Common Unity. I'm Jason Fox.
And I'm Dr. Gabriel Lewis, and we are bringing the community together with a common unity.
Get into it if you like. So welcome back to Common Unity. Today we've got our second female guest. It's someone we've been trying to get on for a while, but she's such a hustler, she didn't have the time for us. But she's made a little bit of time. I met this girl when I was about 30 through mates, and we've had a few nights out on the piss together, and I've just seen her create many companies in that time, and I'm quite looking forward to knowing the full backstory and sharing that with you today. So welcome, Natasha.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to learning more.
Thank you, guys.
So it's always easier to start at the bottom and just say, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
So I actually was born in Tauranga. I was born here. And with my parents, I am a farm girl through and through, and most people know I am a farm girl again now. But I moved to Auckland with my parents and went to school there, and then my parents separated when I was young, and I have an identical twin sister. So
cool.
Just like you, I know, I heard. So we are mirror images. Do you know much about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So before, when we were living together, we were the same, and then I moved away and lived with my dad for a while, and so then we grew apart and looked different, and then we started living together again and we looked the same again.
Well, it's got a thing called epigenetics, and
Yes.
it's where your DNA is exactly the same from birth, but if you've got different environmental
Yes.
clues and different upbringings or different lifestyles where your DNA will naturally change over a long period of time if
Yes.
you do it long enough. So you actually end up passing on different DNA to your offspring, your
Yes.
children, that you're no longer technically identical twins. But if you had a very similar lifestyle where you're both together, how was that being separated at a
we
young
looked
age?
the
What
same,
age were you?
obviously.
Yeah.
So we looked the same when we were together, same height, same. I mean, obviously to us we look differently.
Yeah.
But when we separated, it was good. It was my choice. I wanted to live with my dad. My sister stayed with my mum, and so we just went down different paths and did different things.
What age were you then?
My parents separated when I think we were about 7, and then I went to live with my dad last year of intermediate, and then did my first 2 years of college with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I lived in Kaurau, so I was like one of 2 white kids that went to the school. I'm actually Maori, but I look white. Yeah,
Like all of us.
Yeah.
Apart
So
from you.
Yeah, apart from me.
well, my mum's dark, but your camera.
Carry on, as you were.
So unfortunately I didn't get that tan, but so
I'm the brownest out of all, and unfortunately I don't have any Māori in me.
Oh, don't you?
No.
I wish I'm so white.
No, my mum's Kiwi, blonde hair, blue eyes, Scottish heritage, and my dad's from Barbados in the West Indies. So
That's such an unusual mix.
Rihanna.
Yeah.
So
Maybe Chris Brown.
They have amazing hair too, that nationality. Yeah.
they do, just not me.
Maybe your offspring.
I got my hair from my grandparent, my Scottish side.
Oh no.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
So what made you want to kind of move and live with your dad?
It was probably a random thing to start with, but
No, it's random's good.
I don't know. I was a daddy's girl, and I definitely like doing things differently. And they didn't want to separate us, so they wanted us to be together. But I just really wanted to be with my dad. I didn't want him to be alone, so I went with him. I didn't know what it was going to be like. He was a policeman back then, so he was on the force for many, many years, and he was one of the cops down there. So it was definitely an interesting upbringing.
Yeah.
Not only being one of the first, one of the only white children
Also
there.
the policeman's daughter.
Yeah.
Like the school snitch.
Yeah, well, no, not that at all, but just definitely different. You can really see it was hard. It was just hard, and there's a lot of truancy, and it's just really hard to get ahead there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you kind of expected to act a certain way from that age, or?
It made me tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And has that helped you in life?
Oh, definitely. But I think, I just took it with what it was, and I just made the best of it. And in the end, I moved back with my mum and lived with my sister, but we'd obviously become quite different people. Yeah. We definitely grew together again. And that's when I ended up going to Howard College, which all my friends, I'm still friends with from there. And cool. It was awesome school.
Yeah.
So are you still close with your twin now?
Yes, yeah. We scrap like you'd never believe. I don't know about you two.
I believe it. We don't scrap often, but hey.
Ours is all verbal now, not physical, but it used to be.
It's the funny thing with twins. If they're arguing, don't get in the middle of
and
it.
You're
just
so
leave
alike.
them alone.
Yeah, you're so alike. You just can't help it. You scrap but you're not actually. You're always on the same side. If it's anybody else against each other, you're always scrapping.
Yeah, no, I get it. I really do. So.
Yeah.
When I say I get it. So.
Fighting for that podium, eh?
Yeah.
Fighting for mum's love.
No, it's quite funny. Like, for me, my twin, like, we'd be like doing a race or something. One example, I was doing a running race and I came first and he came third, and I wasn't happy because we weren't first and second.
Yes.
I wouldn't really care if like he came first and I came second. Like,
you just didn't want the gap
just
between
didn't want
you.
the gap. So it's quite a lot of that kind of relationship. It wasn't like we were competing with one another. We just wanted each other to perform
be the same.
best as what we knew we both could. So I suppose you have your little cheerleader.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. So where did you go from Howard College?
Back then it was a long time ago. I was thinking about going overseas, and I think we finished 7th form, and I was looking at doing, I had quite a bit of a love for the arts, so I was going to do a conjoint degree at university in law and fine arts, and I was deciding where I was going to go, but I realised it was going to be a shitload of hard work. Mm-hmm. Hope I'm allowed to swear on here.
Oh, absolutely. Have you met me?
Yes, I know. And so I wasn't sure, and so I took a break, and my sister was working at Hallenstein, so I actually started there, and I didn't plan on staying there, but the sales skills that I learnt there and the knowledge that I got there in terms of apparel and stuff and the training was really, really good. Yeah. So I stayed there for many years and obviously became manager and things like that. It was an incredible company to work for back then.
Yeah. You grow a lot from little sales roles that maybe you might not think much of, but you gain a lot of skills.
It was just, you're just like the dog's body doing everything when you start, but literally the opportunity was there and the knowledge, and if you wanted the training, things you can do everything with sales, as you know, Jace.
Most of our guests have probably come from sales backgrounds. It's probably been 80% of the people we speak to. Yeah. And the other thing with a company of that size is they have systems and everything in place. Yes. So when you try and start from scratch, you don't know about systems, but if you can, hey, I used to work in this company, these were systems, we need to implement this, now you learn that and understand it. That's huge. That's what I'm going through at the moment with my next venture.
I also had some incredible different managers that I worked with. 2 people that I worked with over the time. One, they did things very different, but I learnt so much from them and they had so much knowledge that that was passed on to me. Yeah. I also had some challenges as well during that time, like obviously it's my first experience to theft, for example, like staff members stealing from me and customers stealing from me. Those things, you just don't even like these ram raids that are going on now, like that was stuff that we were thinking back then, and it's just challenges that you would never have really thought of because these were people you're working with that are stealing from the company that pay your wages. So even down to just obviously service and making big sales and keeping customers, it was great.
Yeah, you learn a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hard work, but good. Yeah. And lots of fun.
Yeah. I've still got connections with some of the people that I've had in roles that you think, like one time it was I can't say a dud job. I was like, the guys that do the security at Supre?
Yes.
Yeah, I was one of them I was like, just for a little period, I had like downtime, I had no job and my mate needed who was doing the security there. He was like, mate, we're needing you. So I was like, sweet, I'll do that. And I did it, and it was quite cool. But I learned a lot. It was super easy, but it was the same thing with the theft and how crafty. And it was my first introduction.
I see it now all the time going into stores because as a business, you just can't afford to have the people, and so you literally see that they are allowing certain percentage of theft because they can't afford to cover the floor with staff.
Yeah.
It sucks really, but
Or even if they could afford it, there's just not enough staff anyway.
no, and not quality staff or people that actually want to work or people that will turn up, all those kind of things. It's really expensive to be an employer these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to from there?
So I decided I wanted to do cosmetics, and I actually went and worked for Estee Lauder. So they were an incredible company to work for. It's where I started my makeup background, and they trained me like exceptional product, exceptional training. It was fantastic. I worked for Smith & Co.'s.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, fantastic company. I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah.
Just the epitome of luxury for a New Zealand brand, very old family company, really good values, and again, great people.
Yeah.
Great practices, all of those things.
Yeah, I buy a lot of my clothing from them because they're the
You
only
better.
people in NZ that have them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so frustrating coming from Tauranga. You got to get in your car and drive to buy a shirt.
Yeah, well, you'll have to be an online
Yeah.
supplier. Yeah.
Well, I've brought stuff online with them, and I'm like, yeah, I love this T-shirt, and they always come in like this funny length.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
So you got to try stuff on.
There's a thing with apparel, yes, and the fabrics and how it like shapes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were fantastic, and then I worked for them for a really long time, and then I relocated down to Tauranga with a new partner, and they were actually really good. They contacted a supplier that worked down here and got me my first repping role. So that's how I kind of started in repping, which was pretty special. And another cosmetics company picked me up, and I was able to do repping for a few years with them.
Oh, wow. Was that sort of like a national territory or?
Yeah, so basically sort of a North Island role where I covered like the Bay of Plenty, Gisborne. Once they realised I'd had luxury experience, I was able to travel. And again, lots of accounts, but lots of good people, but really dealing with all the store owners. And so not just customers, more selling directly to the stores and the owners, and then obviously managing large territory and dollars and things and product. Huge amount of product.
Yeah. And you might listen to my podcast, but I think that's so valuable because, you know, every business you get to go and speak to, they're telling you about how their day was or the things they're facing, and you just learn so much about business by having these conversations. Mm-hmm. It's so valuable. Even I actually said to Anna, I said, I feel like such a better person after the last few months just by doing the podcast, because almost like I do a counselling session once a week. You know, I'm sitting here with a room discussing things with people.
Sitting beside Dr. Gabriel Lewis.
That's me and Tash.
You said over the last 2 months, mate.
Yeah, well, whoever's in the seat. It's been incredible. It's like my mind's been clear. I haven't been like getting angry or anything. Like I've just been like super chill all the time almost. It's like,
Well, you're listening as well. That's such a skill.
What a journey.
It's just the point of just a continual growth, and you can see you've been doing continual growth as well through that whole process that kind of led you up to that role, which is important. So if you're kind of growing and moving forward, it's only a massive positive. So, and it doesn't have to be at a certain rate. It's just like little things like you being a manager at Hallenstein's, you may not have realised the implications and the benefit to
the tools that I learned from that. Plus, I come from the bottom. So one thing that I do in my role now that I'll do forever is I'm not afraid to clean toilets, scrub floors, anything, because that's what my managers did. And, like they didn't just tell me to do it, they earn my respect by showing me. And so all of those roles, if I ask someone to do something, it's because I've actually done it myself. I'm not expecting...
And you're prepared to do it yourself.
100%.
I would never, as a business owner, never ask somebody to do something that I'm not prepared to do at all. Like, I think it's disingenuous and it just doesn't float.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing more harm if you're going to ask them to do something if you're like, stuff that.
As long as it's within their skill set, I guess that's the only thing I'd say. Like different businesses that I've had, some things I couldn't ask certain people to do. Yeah. But where possible, I try to be transparent and sort of fluid with all the different jobs that I can do and vice versa with them, because it's also extra skills they can learn. And, it's only better for us if we get stuck and we need a person to jump in that role as well.
Yeah.
It's about growth.
Yeah, totally.
Leading by example. How good.
So from that role, where did you end up? Have you had multiple roles or?
Yes, I've had lots, so that's why I probably won't, that sounds terrible, but I've had a few different career changes based on location.
Yeah.
living down here definitely provided challenges to the senior roles that I wanted and I was used to. I went back to Auckland and worked for Chanel for a long time, was sort of my next large role, which was a real key focus for me. I worked for them for several years. Incredible company. I cannot... Yeah, like the brand is everything that you would imagine the brand to be. It's like working for a private company with that kind of brand, prestige, history, story. It's even now, and it's been it's been years since I've worked for them. It's still like such a luxury brand. You
look back and you're like, wow, yeah.
Everything they did, everything they executed was 100% luxury. They took every single step to make sure it was perfection.
So have you bought Chanel since leaving the company?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
You know you've got to work for a good brand if you've bought their product afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Not retail
and I recommend it even to this day. I recommend it. And even I remember when we didn't have Chanel boutiques here in New Zealand and I was looking after the brand, I still remember the experience going into the shop as a like not even a customer. I was a worker essentially, watching clients coming in and them spending their money, and some of the things that they were buying were thousands of dollars, but the experience that we were providing. If you had the money, you would spend it because the experience was probably like buying a Lambo for some people. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I only had my first luxury goods experience really recently, and we went into Gucci and brought a couple of things.
Oh, yeah. How'd you feel?
Poor. Because, it's not all cheap, but, the experience when you walk in there. Well, it's a cool experience. Like, you walk in there, okay, this is going to be your sales agent. They're going to be with you, and they're going to show you everything in the store. It's not looking. They can explain it all. We got Anna a belt, and they're like, please inspect it. She's like, oh, there's a little scratch there, but it's okay. And he's like, no, heavens no. Takes it away, brings another one. Please inspect all this. Yeah. But the whole process is very, it's personalised, and you become part of it.
And even when you work for when you don't work for a luxury brand, but when you are someone that could maybe go to Thailand, Bali and those countries, and you can buy the parallel imported or the fake gear, and then you work for a brand like that, you can really see the difference. But as a tourist, when you're just seeing it, you just can't until you work for the brand, and then you can literally spot it a mile away. But also just the product, the quality, like the things that I've bought from them over the years still look like I bought them yesterday. The stories behind it, I mean, it's the number one selling fragrance in the world, and the brand, everything about it, it's still to this day.
I had some vintage Chanel thong that was selling for some stupid price that I saw that was on some site, like
probably.
Yeah, it was crazy how much it was selling for, because it was some 1990s product.
So it could have even been who was around, who was the designer.
I think it was on some Vogue.
Or it might have been on the cover. Like one of the experiences that I had when I was working there that I still remember, I got to go, like, this is just an example of what they did. Like, there was the party of the year, and it was the little black jacket party, and Karl Lagerfeld, because he was alive and he was one of their designers, so he flew all these artists and different people, like musicians around the world, and he took photos of them in this little black jacket, which is like the signature piece for Chanel. And then he did all these art exhibitions all through the Fisherman's Wharf. They'd done it, they decked it out, and so all of the staff in the like head office got to go to this party, and it was the party of the year. It made the paper. It was, you walked in, there was just hot people everywhere, trays of champagne, exceptional music, amazing food, like incredible. And then you saw these big posters that he'd taken photos of in this little black jacket, but all styled differently with all famous people. Like Yoko Ono, you name any artist, any model, they were all in that jacket getting photographed. It's incredible.
As being like the kind of grandfather of iconic style. He's rocked that. He wears the one outfit, rocks it every day of the week, and he still owns it. You're never going, oh, he's wearing the same thing, because it's slightly different, but it's similar, but it's his style. I did with ATIP One Oryx. We did we had a bit of a design thing, and we collabed together and did a Carl Lumo Feld. It was to do with Lumo cameras, and we made a bit of a thing. But we did I designed this little. It was basically on a doll, but you had to design a little doll.
Scale.
But it was small scale, but it was funny.
Wow.
But it was, guess what? It was the iconic black jacket.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it stands out, and the
Yep.
same thing, because it's not the Lumofeld without that, but it's having that iconic
Yes.
things that's him or
Yeah.
yeah. So on that note, do you have any things that really stands out for you that's like quintessentially you?
What do you mean by that?
Like any things that you really stand out, whether it's your personality or things that you really
hope
like.
so.
That's well, you have something. It's just like
I haven't thought about that. No, I'd hope so. I hope I have a standout personality.
even from the things, you obviously give a lot of things a chance and shot
Yep.
without boo-hooing them, and obviously pretty optimistic.
I
with
would
your
like to think that I
opportunities.
have a very optimistic view on life and things that come my way. I definitely roll with the punches, if you like, and I definitely shoot from the hip and I don't really ever think I'm down. You know, I might be down, but I'm not out. It's
Yeah.
sort of like things happen and I'm just going to make it work, and we just carry on going, and the only way's up, really.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge skill set to have in general, and it's a huge win. If you get what I mean. So
Yes.
quintessentially, that's your jacket.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's like that success line. Everyone thinks it's just a even line, but really it's the spaghetti on the page trying
Yeah,
to get there.
totally.
That's
Totally,
really what life's
definitely.
like every day.
Yes.
Relationships, your kids, everything
Yes.
goes like that. It's
How's
never,
it life,
never always
everything?
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the big thing for me is I always try to make connections with people and experiences and things like that, and making memories, whether it be with people, like either the people that I'm with or my children or my family, or with my business and things that I'm doing, so that I know that it's going to obviously last and stick.
Yeah. Yeah. Relationships. The people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, only as good as the people I work with. So they want to be good.
No iron team, all the rest, right?
So
Yeah.
you said children. So what's some lessons that your children have taught you? How many children do you
I've
have?
got two children.
Two
So I have a little boy, his name's Axel, he's almost 7.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter called Winter.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Cool.
Winter Ocean. She was born on the ocean.
Cool.
So, yeah, they have taught me more than anything in my life. My son, he was born prem, and then he needed a lot of surgeries and things like that. And my husband, a little bit of a backstory, he's a saturation diver.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was away on the oil rigs, and we'd timed it that he would be here. But
Because he was prem.
yeah, he wasn't. And at the time, we'd sold one of our businesses, and our plan had been to leave the country and go offshore, because we thought, oh, we'll have him, he'll be healthy, and we're young and we're fit, we'll just leave the country and live overseas, because he was working offshore. So it made sense. Anyway, he arrived way too early, and then he needed surgeries and things, so it just, the whole plan changed. So if anything, yeah, hope is probably a big thing.
Yeah.
And resilience.
Yeah. Roll for the punches.
Yeah,
Shoot from
definitely,
the hip.
definitely. Hope, faith, yeah, resilience. Just he's just so spirited, and he's got the most sweetest, kindest nature. He's just a beautiful boy.
Yeah, well, I've had this conversation with another person in the past, and kids that kind of have had to go through lots of surgeries and have those challenges at a different age, have the kind of awareness and self is quite different, and it's kind of quite unexplainable. But my son's had the same sort of thing, and you kind of can't explain it. But all the parents that have the children can explain something, and they've all explained it in the same similar way.
So he was extended breech, so that's not really anything, but he was breech. Stuck pretty much for months, and he was like that from 3 months on. On top of that, he had an amniotic band, which for people that don't know, it was sort of like a break in the sac that goes around like a body part or a limb. They saw it on the scan and never told me about it until I was 20 weeks, but basically he stopped moving. So I could feel movement, but he wasn't actually moving around, so I didn't actually know what it was. Then I found out apparently it was quite rare. It was like 3% of the population that would have it. They never told me until afterwards that the band could have been around a limb or something, and after he came out, like if it had been around a foot or an arm, it could have dropped off pretty much. It would have been gone. And so thank God they didn't tell me, because that would have been pretty traumatic. But I did get told about the band at, I think it was 20 weeks then. And that was when we were having lots of complications. And the whole way along, I didn't know if he was going to last.
So natural fighter.
Yep. And he survived. And then when he came out, I was sort of very not maternal at all. I thought, everyone have a hold. I'd get a chance to hold him. And then next minute we're in an ambulance going to Hamilton and he's having surgery. Yeah. So, I guess then finally the maternal instinct kicked in, but he was just such a good baby and he was a sick child, but he was really happy, just such a good baby. I was really lucky, all things considered.
The team at Hamilton are pretty amazing.
Yes, yeah, incredible.
Especially with the kids department, can't
they were pretty average to me.
Okay.
My experience was pretty traumatic, but what they did for my son was amazing. I can't fault him. So I definitely have been through my share of rubbish, the way that I got treated, because they were exceptional to the child, but because I'd come over at night and I'd just had a Caesar, they weren't ready for it. So they didn't even have they had us in the ambulance. We got there, the back of the ambulance was open and there was no steps. And obviously I couldn't walk at this stage because I just had my stomach cut open, and they were like, you're going to have to jump off the back of the ambulance. So that was pretty,
wow.
Yeah. My inside's going to fall out. That was pretty whoa. And then they didn't want to help me once I was inside, whereas my care for my child was amazing, but it's two different units. He was in NICU and they couldn't keep me down there, so I had to go in some random ward and they just forgot about me. So I had to find my own way down, and it was horrible. So
that's highly challenging. Yeah. And that's not ideal at all.
And then they once I'd done his surgeries, because the care was so much better in Tauranga, we actually checked ourselves out and came back to Tauranga, but they didn't even give us an ambulance. So because they couldn't give us an ambulance, but they couldn't give me a room, so they kept him in an incubator, and then they checked us out to check us back into Skaboo in Tauranga. So the whole thing was, because you've got a special child as well. So it's it was not good. And then when I came back, I ended up on a bed with an emergency blanket. All of this, my husband didn't even know my son was born. Yeah. It was on my own. So I had a few family members there, but it was pretty traumatic.
It's a lot to go through.
Yeah, we had a little experience with a crazy nurse that saw Maddox and went crazy nuts and actually put him in the middle of a COVID ward, and I was like, no. He's got an issue.
He needs to be on his own.
This is his what's happening for him. This is not anything COVID related. She just wouldn't listen until my wife just stood up and was it was Mama Lioness was like, this is not happening. Yeah. When we realized what was happening, and then it was and I was like, you need to get Mr. Kukari.
That's my doctor.
Yeah.
That was my son's doctor. Yeah.
Phenomenal
he did
surgeon.
So he did my son's surgery. So he had 2 surgeries with my son.
So he's still going.
Is he? No, he was last time he saw my son, he's like, I'll be retired now next time you come back. I'm like, no, you won't. Yeah. You better be here.
No, luckily for us, he wasn't retired. So,
how long ago was that?
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, so he probably is now. But he was like, I'll be retired. Going. I'm like, you better not be.
Yeah, he's still going. So he's still helping lots of children.
He's so lovely, and he was so good, and it was.
He's somebody who would love to get on the podcast.
He is lovely, and he's amazing. So humble.
Yeah, incredibly humble.
Yeah. He took exceptional care of my son, and both in Tauranga and Hamilton, and that's why I didn't mind coming. And the maternity team in Tauranga was amazing. It was just obviously the experience I had from the nurses in Hamilton, but the maternity team that looked after my son in NICU were amazing. Yeah. But it was pretty, I didn't tell my husband because he was obviously in saturation. So back then it wasn't like you could text and call, because obviously he's at pressure at depth, and the company that he was working for had crappy internet. So he didn't know for a whole week he'd had a son. And then when he found out, I'd made sure that I'd said to everyone, now don't post anything on social media. Let's just wait till Jake sees his child, because otherwise...
That's not nice.
No, and not if his cellmates or the people, the inmates see it before he does. Yeah, and the other thing too was that obviously he didn't know his son was sick, so I didn't want him to find out that I'd had the child early, because he already knew there was complications, but also that there was issues and that he was having surgery. And all of that before he was here because he would freak.
Yeah.
And there was no way he could physically be here. I think he was in India at the time. So it was, even if he got blown out of saturation and come home, we would have been waiting like 7 or 8 days before he could have got here. So he's going to miss it. So he's done.
Women are pretty amazing, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing job to kind of take all that. Like, you don't have that kind of support there. It's like pretty phenomenal when you look back and you're like, whoa, I'm pretty tough.
Yeah.
You're a boss. You're a boss.
Yeah, and I like my pain threshold. Anyone that's listening that knows me knows it's like 0. So it was
It's
like,
obviously not.
Oh yeah, no, it was my labour experience. So I definitely made sure I was looked after because I had to have obviously emergency Caesars and things like that because I went in so early. But I almost drove myself. It was lucky my sister was there. Otherwise I would have driven myself in because I'd been going in every couple of days, getting in, and then had to check out to go back to work because I had issues with staff. So I was still working at the same time. So, but you just make it happen because you have to.
You do.
Yeah.
It's cool. All those different learnings would kind of translate to business now.
Nothing has prepared me, like nothing has prepared me for motherhood, like, and all those crazy things that your parents have done or your mothers have done, you don't understand until you're a parent, and then it all makes sense, and you just, like that lion cub type thing, you just totally realise it's, you know, that it's like your heart beating outside of your chest, watching them play and run around and just everything. It's just incredible. You can't describe it.
Yeah.
Like that saying that I mentioned it a while ago, it's the hard, and it relates to women as well, but, you know, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So like that, all that adversity you face makes you stronger for the next challenges you face.
Well, it doesn't break you or kill you.
Look at Elon Musk, he's the wealthiest man on the world, and he's talking about engineering fake adversity for his kids so they learn skills.
Wow.
You know, because he's like, because they'll want for nothing, so I'm going to have to make life a little bit hard for you so you actually grow into good people. You know, and it's not that you're a bad person, but a strong person.
Yeah,
a strong person. So
I've definitely had my share of challenges. I've earned good kids, and they are beautiful children.
So what's made you earn good kids?
Oh, I've just had my share of challenges.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, we all get thrown some curveballs, and it's just how we handle them.
Yeah.
You know, I've had things that have worked out and things that haven't. But at the end of the day, I've just made the best of the situation.
Yeah. That's where mindset's so important to kind of actually, I'll take a lesson from this, I'll grow for it, rather than going, oh shoot, I'm a victim now because that happened, because that's actually going to stagnate you in the situation rather than kind of growing and learning from it and having, like, instead of like the amount of times I've had people, and even previously, like, oh, I've got post-traumatic stress. Okay. Yeah. Well, you can have post-traumatic stress, but let's get on to the post-traumatic growth as well, where you can grow.
It is hard when you get into that zone of like being down and out. I will say, like we had an experience quite a few years ago where we were away on holiday and we'd worked our guts out and we had this big holiday. And while we were away, I had a good friend of mine staying in my home who was living with me, who'd just returned from overseas. Basically, we got cleaned out. Our whole house got burgled. Everything got taken. Like our freezer full of meat got taken. A gun safe that we had bolted to the floor and ceiling got ripped off the wall. Like, it was everything. The house got cleaned out.
Papers.
It made the papers, yeah. And it was pretty horrible when that happened because I'd been burgled before, but it was a very different experience having children and being robbed. And then to find out later on that I was targeted, it was so traumatic. And because I used to feel quite safe going to and from work, I always thought, I'm no one's going to try and attack me or anything like that, because I don't do anything to anybody. But it was like I was getting followed. I got followed home. I was getting things happening to me through work and outside my house because I work nights. So it was definitely a PTSD thing, like an anxiety thing. Yeah. And I used to think I was quite a tough chick and I could look after myself, but literally I was getting followed home. On the cameras, we've got people following, like one guy that tried to burgle us. I got out of a taxi, got into the house, and he followed us home and was outside on the cameras.
Yeah, no, that's just stalking.
Yeah, this guy actually was trying to rob Jake's trailer, but still, it was just because I had a renovation company, so it was that was constantly getting hit. Just was bad timing, but the point is that was happening so many times, and it gave I couldn't leave my house, I couldn't go out without my friends. Like, obviously, I've got a lot of male friends, so it definitely made me feel better. But I couldn't even go. Like, going to the mall was a bit of a scary thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I finally got over it once I worked out who these people were. And obviously, it took a long time. Years later, the police knew who they were, but by then they were in jail, and, it was all drugs related. Yeah. No connection to us, but they did target us.
Yeah.
And we were new to the area, so we hadn't fully unpacked. It was horrible. And like my girlfriend that was staying, she'd just returned from overseas. She was an ex-Golden Gloves fighter. She would have wasted them. They literally watched her walk out to her car. And they took all her stuff as well. And she'd been there for like a few, I think she'd been staying with me for a month or so. She only had the stuff she brought back with her. It was like all her gear got taken. It was horrible.
Wow.
They back a truck in or something? And
they took my car. I'd valeted my car for my manager because I thought, I'll be a good bitch. She'll get my car and, use it for work. And they literally loaded up with all my meat and our guns and stuff that they'd stolen from our house.
Wow.
So it was, they took all my husband's diving gear. They took everything.
They took some priceless stuff too, didn't
They took a lot of priceless stuff. They took, like my grandmother's greenstone. They took, heaps of priceless stuff. Jake's antique diving helmets, war medals, like things that we could never replace. Yeah. Like even some of the guns that were in there were my dad's from when he fought and went to Vietnam, and like, things that were going to my son, and like priceless heirlooms that were irreplaceable, that weren't really of any use to anybody.
Or value.
No.
Or useful.
Yeah. A whole chest freezer of meat, an entire chest freezer gone.
Opportunists.
Yeah. It's really heavy.
Well, meat was expensive.
It still is.
Yeah. So they took all that stuff. The funny thing is, because obviously I'd worked for Schnell, they didn't know what some of my stuff was worth. So there was they'd taken all these stupid cool bags, but they'd taken Converse bags and Rip Curl bags and things because they were all brand new. They were all hers, but they threw my bags around and they were all $10,000 handbags. So they were thrown all over the ground. They didn't know. They left those bags and took all her stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you can already tell
who it was.
Yeah. So.
It was just horrible.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But it took a long time to get my mojo back.
Yeah,
but
that naturally would, because it's
but I'm not a
trust.
victim, and it's like I don't want to be a victim. And having someone come into my home and not being able to catch them was, and I've got a pretty tough husband, and he couldn't catch them, and he couldn't keep me safe.
We had a situation where Maddox was in the surgery one time, in one of the surgeries, and at Hamilton Rotorua Hospital, and my car got broken into and stole everything. And then it was seriously, I'm like, we're at a hospital.
Yes.
It's the pit of the pit, and
you're not here because you want to be.
And then you're making the challenge more challenging. And at first I was 30 seconds I was fuming. I was really pissed, and I was like, man, if I only saw them. And then you know what? I was really stoked I didn't see them.
Yeah.
I was really grateful that I didn't see them, and I was like, you know what?
Would have made it worse, yeah.
Would have made it worse. I would have.
You would have done something stupid.
Would have done something stupid.
Because you were angry and it's the heat of the moment, and you don't need to do it.
Would have not been beneficial for my family or my son. And you know what? I was just like, you know what? I'm so grateful for the fact my son's surgery went well.
It's just a
horrible
thing to do to someone, though. I don't really care about gear. I don't care about that stuff, because it's the stuff that's replaceable. Who cares? It's the sentimental things. And it's like my beautiful friend that was staying with me, looking after my house while I'm away. I'm on a holiday where I've worked so many days in a row to get this holiday, and then I get robbed. When I get this call from her, I'm thinking, she's joking. There's no way. She's like, I'm serious.
No.
It was like, no way. Yeah, I'm serious. I don't know how to tell you this. I'm serious. Everything's gone.
Even the ute, when I drove it afterwards, didn't. I was like, oh. Like
What?
it got fixed and
Oh, you
everything,
got-
but
oh,
it was
yes.
like, just kind of had that kind of, you know,
The
what I mean?
love's gone.
It's like, okay,
Feels
whatever.
dirty now.
So we found my vehicle. It got written off, but it got found in Tauranga like 7 days later, still in the immaculate condition.
Oh,
Yeah, but they'd left like cigarettes and things, and so that's how we got the DNA. But it was too late then. All the gear was gone, and one of them's in jail and what have you. So
yeah, wow.
yeah.
Well, let's try and go back to some positive stuff then, because we can see why you're so strong. But
You might want to edit that stuff out.
Not at all. We don't need
no,
it.
it's a fantastic story. So Chanel,
Yes.
and that's what we
So-
got up to. You did Chanel.
Okay,
you
so
did,
yes.
when did you go self-employed?
So while I was with Chanel, so I met someone that was down here, and I started with Chanel living in Auckland, and I originally didn't want to work for them. I knew the brand was exceptional, but I was like not leaving the Mount. The Mount's where it's at. I moved here, loved it, made some really good friends. There was no way I was leaving. Anyway, I sent my CV in, and they were like, you have to come for an interview. I went for the interview. It was a video interview with like 7 or 10 people from Australia, and they'd set up a room like this, and it was just me and the 7 people. And then they liked me, and they wanted me to fly to Australia. So they paid for everything, organised it, and I still was adamant I wasn't going to take the job, because at this stage I thought I was going to go work for Air New Zealand. They put me on like the red eye over there and the red eye back. So straight away I realised I was not doing that again for Air New Zealand. But when I got to Chanel, the experience was exceptional. And I just realised I couldn't work anywhere else. I had to work there. They offered me the job. I took it. And then after I worked for them for many years, I decided I wanted to relocate back to Tauranga. And so I resigned. And then they offered me extra things to stay on and commute. So I stayed in Tauranga, but we commuted back to Auckland. And I did that 5 days a week for 2 years. So you can imagine what that was like. But I had no kids then. So, going to cool parties and working for one of the best brands in the world was pretty amazing.
So would you fly every day?
So I would drive to Auckland and then fly around New Zealand or to Australia.
Wow.
Or I would
And
drive.
then come back in the weekend.
Yeah, so our biggest trade was Auckland, but during this time, I started working just looking after the North Island, and there was someone looking after the South Island, and then she went on maternity leave, I think, and then I looked after both the North and the South, so I would do both, like fly basically around New Zealand, and then travel I reported to Sydney, but it was all done through Paris, through France. So everything was like, you didn't make a decision through Australia. It was all directly from Chanel.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's an experience.
Yeah, so then I came back to Tauranga, and then they agreed to let me stay on, and obviously I would travel, but I was pretty much living in hotel suites. So the novelty definitely wore off, and we wanted to eventually have a family. So I knew that there had to be an in-game point where I would work for myself, because there was just nothing like that down here. There was nothing that could compete.
Yeah.
And every other job that I'd look at would be working weekends, working late nights, all of that kind of stuff. So, or it wouldn't pay the money, which unfortunately, you don't want to say it's about dollars, but it really does.
End of the day, it does come
It
down
does
to
if you have a certain type of lifestyle. And one of my passions is traveling, and so I needed to be able to have the funds or a job that would allow me to travel or work remotely, so I could travel, or work from anywhere in New Zealand, because at that stage my husband was still working and traveling.
Yep.
So this was why we did all this. So when we came back here, I used to party a bit, and I still do, for those that know me, but I've tamed it down a bit. And I wanted to get back into hospo, so I ended up buying a strip club.
Bit of a curveball.
Yeah, so I used to go and drink at this place called Buddha Lounge, and it's where most people in Tauranga used to go, and it was an awesome venue. And then afterwards there was this doggy place called Bobby's that everyone used to go and drink at the very end, because it had a late license, but it was a disgusting venue back then. We used to go there, and I always thought, if someone turns this into something, this place could be amazing. Then years later it came up for sale, and I bought it.
Yeah, cool.
Because it had a late license, that was the main title, right?
So before I purchased it, they had lost the late license because there'd been a few issues with it. It was run by some Chinese people, and she had lost the license for different reasons. So at the time I knew about liquor, but not to the extent of this. The council actually sent me the full file because they couldn't wait to get new owners in there. And then I found out the likelihood of never getting the license. But I still thought there is money in this industry and in this business. I knew nothing about it though. I had no clue. I'd never worked in strip clubs. I'd never worked in parlours. I had no idea about running this type of business.
Yeah.
I just thought I can make this work.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All your experience with leading
I can
up
make
to
this
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
I know I can make this amazing. Yeah.
all to do with Chanel and the experience.
Yeah. I
It's
just
all
had
related.
Perfume
I
people in the
know.
toilets.
I just knew I could make it amazing. And so so I knew nothing about strip clubs, but I knew how to make businesses work, and I knew about hospo, and I knew how to throw a party. So it's like, I can make this crank. So obviously we had to renovate it. We gutted it, renovated it. Part of the thing was finding the right people around me. So I needed to get the people that actually had the skills I didn't.
Yes.
So I put an ad up and I had lots of people apply. But I hired this amazing girl who is now one of my best friends, Jo, and she actually came from another strip club in Auckland, and she relocated here with me. So what she didn't have in management and age and experience, she had in strip clubs. Mm-hmm. And together, we did it together.
Yeah, wow.
So she learnt off me, and obviously I trained her in areas that she didn't have experience in, but I definitely learnt a lot off her.
Yeah.
She taught me everything. She taught me everything I knew about the industry. Like, I was a real prude before I got into this industry, apparently. Yeah.
You thought, oh no, I'm out there.
Well, no, I was never in there, like, I was always at the back. I was in there partying and drinking, but not to actually watch the show. So I had no clue about anything to do with the actual strip club side of it. And now, obviously I do. Years on.
Yeah,
You learn a few bits and pieces over your time. Wow, that's an amazing story. So what's some big lessons you've learned throughout that time?
Oh, so many. So many. Well, like I said, you're only as good as the people that you work with. And I think really hiring someone that had the experience I didn't have, I really went with what skills don't I have and what do I need. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I also took a gamble on someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to actually hire people that don't have your same
Yes.
skill set,
Yep.
because you know your strengths and you know I know personally my skill strengths, and I don't need another me. I need somebody else.
I need someone better than me
Yeah.
or someone different that can do things I can't.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. That was like amazing. I was still working in another job at the time. So I was traveling, I was working, because I obviously had to fund the fit out along with my husband's. We were both funding it, we had bills to pay. So until it started making money and things like that, we both were funding it.
Yeah. Yep.
So especially his support, like obviously, he never once questioned me. He was 100% behind me, which, like what the brand is today is because he believed in me.
Yeah.
And he didn't ever say no. Like everybody else was like, you're nuts. I can't believe you're going to do that. You are going to do that? Like, you work for Chanel. What are you thinking? My parents still say this to this day.
Yeah.
They're like, what
do
are you
they
doing?
still think it now?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we don't discuss. The rule
all
of
right.
Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
That's okay. But sometimes, when you've got a vision, it's good and you can see it and other people can't see it. It's sometimes
Some
good to
did.
go with it.
Some people totally saw it. Some people knew that I would make it amazing, but there was definitely the doubters and the haters. But for me, bring it. Like it just drove me to make sure that I could make it even more successful, and it worked.
Yeah.
Is it 10 years? Like how long you had
11.
it now? 11 years, yeah. So
Long time.
Yeah, long
pretty young
time.
buying it too.
Yeah.
It's not like you were 40 or something deciding to start this
No,
business.
I'm 40 now. God damn it.
Precisely. So you brought that at 29 then.
Yes, yeah. So I just got married and bought it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How ballsy.
I know.
It's a cool move. It's a cool move.
Yeah.
I know plenty of guys that always want to own one. They'll never
honestly.
do anything about it.
So we had this group chat with all my best mates from school, and most of them are guys. And it's really funny because the conversations we often have is, out of all of us, we never thought it would be me.
Yeah.
Like we used to hang out in strip clubs a lot because they used to do free entry and all the stuff, and most of them are guys, and around uni it was really close. So they would always go there and we'd all meet up there, cheap drinks, blah, blah, blah. Never once did we ever think, God, she's going to buy it, or one of us would buy it. So it's just so ironic that this has happened.
So do you think there's got massive advantage of you being a female getting into the
Yeah,
role?
definitely. Advantages and disadvantages, but definitely I think that, I definitely try to do things my way. When I first arrived in the industry, and especially in Tauranga, there'd been a few other clubs and they were tried to sell me girls, for example. I don't go down that road. At the end of the day, these girls are contractors. They work for who they want. They do what they want. If they want to work for me, that's awesome. But if they want to work somewhere else, that's fine. There's definitely restraint of trade in terms of where you want them to go.
Yeah.
But I don't own them.
No.
No,
not at all.
I might have restrictions around them not working in the local area so that my clients don't see them in another shop down the road. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell them they can't work for another business somewhere else in New Zealand. But they tried to sell me girls.
Yeah.
And I said no. In the end, it worked out for me. But it could have gone the other way. Yeah. Again, it was just a gamble, and I just don't like being told what to do. Yeah, pretty much.
It's technically giving away your business.
Yeah,
it's
and your secrets, in a sense where it's a confidential industry. The clients that come to my business may not go to somebody else's business. So, it's all about making sure that we protect the brand as well. Mm-hmm. And the service, and the way that I run my business isn't how they are going to do theirs. So I know that the clients do travel, but that's fine.
Yeah. The clients can, but
I want to keep my staff loyal.
Yeah, it's important.
Is a big part of the business still the alcohol? Because obviously the alcohol you just cut off at 1 now.
Yeah, so the way that it works, everything in the mount, because of the liquor license, everything's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, but from then you get to stay open for till 2.
No, so we have 2 licenses. So basically we have a license because of the type of business that we are operating that we can trade after hours. So there's no cut-off time as such.
Oh, okay.
But we just can't serve liquor past 1.
Yeah. They can sell Coke and Red Bull.
I can sell Coke, Red Bull, 0% drinks. Obviously, alcohol's definitely a huge part of it, but it's also low alcohol drinks, mocktails, Red Bulls, energy drinks, but it's also that party atmosphere.
Yeah, you're holding them in there for a bit longer where there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
All their mates can
carry
on.
The big thing for us is bottle service. We really try to push that VIP bottle service, the waitresses, that kind of thing, table service, which you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's really where I make my money. And so a lot of it is they might book that and take that out the back. Not necessarily with alcohol. It could just be a Red Bull thing, but they still get their waitresses and all of that, which, again, you can't get anywhere else.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for providing that service that you would have learnt through Chanel.
Yeah, luxury all the way, baby.
Oh, very, very cool.
But you didn't stop there, did you? You decided to get into a few other things. So
yes.
One's never enough. What came after that? Was it another restaurant?
Yes. So then I had that bar for about a year or 6 months, and then the opportunity came up to purchase Ivory, which was down the road. That was a sort of a tapas wine lounge bar. That was really cool. I love that bar. So that was down the road, very, very different venue. Hadn't had a restaurant before, so it was a huge learning curve. Learnt so much. Massive amount of staff, huge operating costs, something that I didn't probably know the full extent of until I was in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was pregnant towards the end, and it was really hard. People were sick all the time, and I was in there pregnant late at night. It was just hard. So I loved that restaurant and bar. I loved the club, and it did really well. But it's definitely not. I specialise in bars, I'd like to say, and I probably wouldn't want to go into something like that again, just from the lessons I learnt. And I know, I got to stay in my lane. I do well in what I'm doing.
From memory, didn't you find you got a real kick when they changed the drinking allowances too? Because it used to be 400 breath and then it went to 200.
Yeah, so there was a lot of things that changed, even down to the liquor part of it happened where they changed the license and brought out that the second one. That made a massive difference because my trade was predominantly after work drinkers, corporates, that kind of thing. And then people just stopped going out, or they'd have one and go home, or light beers because they couldn't be caught out.
Or even you'd go out to dinner with your wife, so you'd share a bottle of wine. Now it's only a glass each. And we had double pours. They wouldn't have double pours, they'd have single. So it made a huge difference, the liquor laws, to my trade. Obviously, if I'd have stayed in that industry, it would have come back, but you really had to be in it for a long time. On top of that, I also found the markets, all of those started popping up and they were everywhere. And so all of the strip down there, that took a huge hit. Some of the restaurants where people would have been going, some of them were dead. I was lucky that people still came to mine and I still had a really strong
cocktail, wine bar, dance party kind of thing at the end of the night.
Yeah.
But during that trade on the Friday nights on the markets, that killed a lot of those businesses. Yeah.
You can understand how it would naturally without
Well, why
thinking
wouldn't you?
about it.
Yeah, because
So-
if people can take their own stuff and they've got the dogs and their kids, then they don't need to get a sitter and things. So straight away the dynamics change. And then
it's
if,
got a lot of people in
Yeah.
one spot, so
Yep.
it's got that
Yep.
space.
And
where-
if you go there and you have a few, well, then you're not going to bother going out. Or if you go there and then you've spent money there, you're not going to spend it going out. So there's all these things that sort of came up. On top of it, the amount of people that were there, like the amount of vendors, I think there was like 9 when I started, and then there was like 17 towards the end. So, I mean, there's more now, but that was a lot in the space of 2 years.
yeah.
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 Yeah, it's such a lot of things you've done in a short space of time and learning, especially. So,
Oh, yeah.
So did you end up selling ivory, or did you end up?
Yeah, so I sold it. I was due to have my baby, and I actually was going to sell both. One moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pause for a Pals break.
Not sponsored.
That's not J Reeve. Supply.
Look me up. The plan was, because my husband worked offshore, the plan was that we were going to sell both our businesses and we were going to move offshore. That's really what I wanted to do, work remotely, doing something else, and have the kid overseas. And while he was young, not needing to go to school, it'll be a good opportunity. Where that all came from was when I had to take my husband to the doctors, and he's a tax-paying resident. He's here all the time. We never travelled outside of the country. We mainly travelled here on our boat, and they wanted him to pay immigrant rates. He's paying tax here, all that kind of stuff, but he was getting charged as an immigrant.
Yeah.
And so there was no benefit to us living in New Zealand. And so those kind of things, we were just like, what's the point? We didn't actually have children at that stage, so we didn't realise the medical benefit of the health system here and the free care that you get until our son was born and the care that he needed, then it all changed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I could only imagine the cost of.
Well, and
the
he wouldn't have got the
surgeries.
care.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't have got it. And trying to travel or take him places, if he'd got sick and needed surgeries, trying to get the specialists, I just wouldn't have got them. Or
Yeah.
where would I have gone?
Well, we would have had it covered personally. Like we would have had the care covered, the cost covered.
We would have too,
However,
but the
we would
person-
not have had Mr. Kukare.
No, and you
So-
may not have spoke the language. Like we were talking about going to Indonesia, Thailand, those kind of countries, which we're both really familiar with, but English is not always their first language. Trying to go through the hospital system when they're going to do surgeries on your children and you don't speak the same language. Like we wouldn't have had him either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been very challenging.
Yeah. So we stayed here, and so
Yeah.
the journey continued.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So at that point, you sold ivory.
So I sold ivory, and then I had both bars on the market, and I was adamant I was done. I was overworking in these industries, the staffing, all of that. I was just ready to just take a bit of a break. Luckily, I'd got my strip club into a bit of a situation where it was managed fully, so I wasn't really in there. It was pretty much remote operation. I had full-time management. It had been like that for a while, so I was hardly having to put much effort into that, myself physically. And then I think the break just gave me a bit of a recuperation. We definitely considered seriously about selling it, but we just didn't find the right buyer. And it was still quite a passion project for me. Like I'd grown it from nothing, so I wasn't just going to give it
something.
away to some guy that was going to, or someone that wasn't going to look after it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being that we held on to it.
It's an interesting one, selling businesses too, because I do it, right? And if you're going to sell a business for 2 or 3 times EBITDA and it's running itself, wouldn't you just hold on to it and keep that income for 10, 15, 20 years?
Some things happen for a reason too.
Yeah.
So something that I've always been passionate about, and anyone that knows me knows this, I'm really into wine and cuisine and champagne and things like that, and it's always been something that I've loved, still love. So I got a good buddy and we did a wine festival here, and that was my next big project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. But then
That was here at the Whatapoa
yeah,
Domain.
so I did Tauranga Food and Wine Festival, and that was like boutique wineries, boutique little food vendors, lots of people, but it was all supposed to be small, but like, so you could get all those really nice wineries there and everyone could make good money. There was definitely good musicians, but it was not supposed to be like a big concert. It was more about eating amazing experience, amazing cuisine, trying the wine, being able to buy the wine if you wanted to, wineries that you wouldn't normally go to, things, people that wouldn't come here. You know, we had Man of War from Waiheke here, like all of those kind of things.
Yeah. Is that the one you had the girls all dressed
yes,
up?
Yes, and I had the Brazilian dancers.
Event.
Yeah.
Even the girls are lining up to see those girls.
Yeah, they were incredible. So they've been at a few events I've done. So I got in like amazing Brazilian dancers with the big, massive salsa drummers, and there was, that was awesome.
So good, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a really good DJ company that came and did a set, Jupiter Project, so they were really big at the time.
I know Martin.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
He's a chiropractor.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there you go.
Dr. Martin.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah. So they were quite big at the time. It was really like the on-trend songs. There was them, and there was a few different kind of artists like that. But it was awesome.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing to get into too, because you'd chew a lot of money before you get it off the ground.
It was a huge amount of the outgoings and the cost on that event. Like, it was massive. And that's the thing, people see the event and they think, oh gosh, the ticket price. They have no idea the cost, the logistics of it. Trying to get an event in a big space was really, really challenging. Even down to like, you know, using a venue where people live. Like, it was a homeless sort of set up camp thing there at the time, so it was like trying to accommodate them. So all of those things were really challenging.
Yeah. Is it something you'd do again?
I'd love to do it again. I probably won't, because the plan was we were going to do it again. During that time, obviously COVID's happened. We've had other events that have been scheduled. I've had other things that I've organised, and through COVID, it really, you know, you just can't guarantee a guest list.
Sure thing.
You've got to pay all that money outright, and then if it gets cancelled, you may not get your money back. Like, the risk is huge.
Yeah.
So, you know, as much as I'd love to do it again, and I really believe in the space, it's not my only business.
Yeah.
And those are just passion projects, and I need to be realistic. I've got kids and a family.
You can't spread yourself too
I
thin.
can't spread myself too thin. Those are also projects I have to be at. So like my previous event, Battle of the Barbecues, it was this amazing American barbecue style festival.
Cool.
Fantastic. I'd only had my baby like 2 weeks before I did the festival, but I'd committed. So I was like, I had a Caesar and I was in the hospital bed with my laptop, like bashing out the work, because it was my project.
Baby. Your second baby.
Yeah,
Third
and I just wanted to make sure it was going to succeed, and those kind of things. And then, you know, there was COVID and all those other kind of things. So I definitely, you know, an event like that, you know, the cost to get things happening and then to not be able to do it unless you've got grants or funding. Whereas I funded mine myself, it was different. I just wouldn't do it again. It's just the risk is too high, I guess.
So where did the kind of the self-belief that you've just kind of backed yourself and gone for things when it's maybe outside of your normal comfort zone or not in your kind of normal trajectory, and you've just backed yourself and gone with it? Where did that come from?
Gut instinct.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's so important to listen to your gut.
Gut instinct, definitely. I think, you know, you get presented opportunities. There's always little gold nuggets and opportunities, and things happen for a reason. And I think it's about whether you can see the gold nuggets amongst the rubble.
Yep.
Like, anything can be an opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyone can succeed.
Yeah.
Like, we all get the same opportunities. Some of us take them, some of us don't. And I guess the other thing too is, are you willing to put the hard work in? Because nothing is ever without hard work. Like, I work all the time. Yes, I have fun. I definitely party and have fun.
You got to enjoy it.
Yeah, but I work a lot. And so, you know, a lot of my friends, they go, how do you do it? But I do it because I want it to be successful, so that I don't have to work so hard, so that when I have a break, I know that my shit's handled.
Yeah.
I know that I've got those good people working for me, or the business is doing well, so I can like take my foot off the gas for a bit, and then I can go back in.
So when did you learn to listen to your gut? That's another question. Because I've had situations in the past where I won't go into details, but I've known it hasn't been quite right, and then I'm like, my head goes, oh no, but then I don't listen to my gut.
So I've definitely had experiences that I've learnt from that haven't always panned out, and I think sometimes your biggest failures are your biggest successes, in the sense where they're your biggest learnings. So I definitely haven't always listened to my gut, or sometimes I've listened and gone ahead and done it anyway, and it hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
and it's been a, oh my God, what have I done moment.
So you've learnt from those moments
Yeah,
and moved forward.
yeah.
Cool.
I've definitely learnt from mistakes.
Yeah.
I've made heaps of them, but ideally,
Everybody has.
yeah, but ideally I haven't made 2 or 3, you know, and I think that's definitely the big key thing that, it's, you know, I guess what is success is always moving. You know, you can do it can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
So that you learn so much from not always winning.
Yeah, yeah. Well, personally, I've learnt more from not winning and just those. Oh, she's okay. I wouldn't do that again, and it changes things rather than oh yeah, great, I won. Well, you know. Yeah,
Yes,
lots of little
definitely.
singles. Yeah,
Yeah, before I had kids, I think it was a big thing too, like not being fearless. I wasn't scared of anything, whereas having children has definitely changed that. I'm scared of everything.
yeah,
You know, like as a mother, you worry about stuff that's not even a thing.
You don't want your kids on the street though. Like if you go reset when you're single, lose everything.
Yeah.
The next week or next day you earn $100, you can put food on the table again.
Yes.
When you got kids and they're out on the street, and if you can't earn that $100, even if you earn $100, probably not enough to feed them now because there's 4 of you or 5.
Well, this is it. Like I had my first house when I think I was like 20, 21. And I remember, and I worked my guts out for that, me and my partner at the time. And I remember both of us, we worked so hard. And then I remember us separating and we divided our money up, what have you. And I remember later on in life blowing that and thinking, what have I done? You know, oh my God, that was just on different things. And, you know, you had to start again. And to go from having that to having nothing again and starting again. But, you know, I think, you know, you treat it differently the second time around and you take more care with it.
yeah,
Yeah, you invest,
yeah.
hopefully.
I do. But,
Either in yourself, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
maybe you're investing in yourself throughout that time.
Yes.
You know?
Don't put it all on Bitcoin.
let's not go there, eh? Let's not go there.
Oh, it's incredible. So is there anything else you've been working on or...
Yeah, so I've just opened a new venue in Rotorua. So that's my second strip club.
Yeah.
So I took over an existing site where we took the building over and then we've completely gutted it, refurbished it, renovated it from the ground up, like wiring, you name it. Literally, it was a shell. So it's exceptional. It's definitely an amazing site now. It's so beautiful.
Enjoyed the sledgehammer, did you?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Saw a few videos
yeah,
of it.
sledgehammer, yeah. No, we do safety boots and goggles. Like, there's a safety squint. yeah, because I didn't have my glasses, but yeah, and chainsaws and things like that. So I love demo. Yeah, so that was cool. It was really awesome, and it's a beautiful venue to put in Rotorua because Rotorua is actually a really cool place to go. But
I really like Rotorua. I
So
even
do
like
I.
driving there.
yeah, it's beautiful. The drive's amazing, and there's so much to do with your kids. And so much free stuff to do with your kids. Like you don't actually need to spend money. You can go on those beautiful redwood walks and all that kind of stuff and have an awesome time. Yeah. And there's beautiful restaurants. The hospitality sector's actually really cool there.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere to go late.
And
That's safe.
what they've got that Tauranga doesn't have is conferences. They have a lot of conferences in town.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I hope it's a success for you. I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, me too. So, conferences, tourism's huge. They usually, like, once it all cranks up again, they'll have buses going there, and obviously that's huge for us.
So have you used the blueprint from what you've already created or are you doing?
Yeah, so it's still under the Eye Candy brand, but we've fitted it for this site. So this site's about 4 times the size of the existing site that I've got.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so basically this one, I've basically modelled it off the existing site I've got, but I've gone way more VIP bottle service. So we've got extra rooms where you can book out for functions, and there's like a plunge pool and sauna and things like that. So you can have like events like hens parties where you'd book hens like in for this sort of spa type treatment, but you can also have like a bartender that does your cocktails, that kind of thing, all private, so you won't be with everybody else. You could even do karaoke, so that there's that kind of thing as well. So it's not just a strip club, there's sort of all kinds of things.
Gutted I didn't make the opening now.
Yeah. I didn't open that part for that. Yeah
that's
Sounds
awesome.
amazing.
yeah
So is there any kind of, it's got a question that we always like to ask, is there kind of, you've covered a lot, but is there kind of any advice you'd give your younger self?
Oh, so much. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And you will make mistakes, but your story's not over yet. Like, this is just a bump in the road. You know, sometimes when I've had bad experiences when I was younger, before I was this age, I definitely thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is so terrible. And I didn't have the optimism of foreseeing that this would not be the end. And it wasn't actually such a bad thing that happened. And sometimes bad things happen to you, so better things can fall into place and you just can't see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
That's
That's
great
amazing.
advice.
Yeah.
I resonate with all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is there anything that you kind of want to cover that we haven't touched upon?
No. Not really. I think you guys have covered everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's very thorough.
I'm looking
Shook it
forward-
out of you.
I'm looking forward to the next chapter.
Oh, yeah.
Have you back in a couple of years when
Yeah.
you're opening your whatever it is.
Totally. Well, we'll have one. We've got one more venue that we're doing under this, and then we'll do something different. So
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, I'd like to personally thank you so much for coming and sharing. It's quite a nice learning experience. Like, I always like learning things. So
Yes, totally.
it's really cool. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time and really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for inviting me, boys.
No, anytime. It's great to finally get you on there.
I know it's been a while. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. So thanks for coming, Tash. Is there any, you might not want to share stuff, you might want to keep it private, but do you want to share any websites or socials or anything that you think people should follow if they're interested?
I'm sure they'll find me.
Miss Mysterious.
Yeah.
It's not too hard these days.
Yeah. I think I'm all over social, so people will be able to find me if they want to. Yeah.
No,
Awesome.
that's brilliant. Well, thanks for your time and your knowledge, your story. It's
Thank
been awesome.
you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for interviewing me.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.